the largest sense and how we are going to stop it. And we have to ask the question, is bombing going to stop it? Or is further terrorism going to stop it? Because war is terrorism. Because war in our time inevitably involves the killing of innocent people. And it may not immediately be, can't match the killing of 6,000 people. No, we've only killed a handful of people in Afghanistan, but we've more than matched that at other times. And there are perhaps 1 million people who have died in Iraq as a result of sanctions that we have enforced and imposed. And no, it's not a matter of measuring, oh, they killed more than us, so we killed more than them. We have to see all of these things as terrorist acts that have taken place in the world, and what can we do about it? And decide that you can't respond to one terrorist act with war, because then you are engaging in the same kind of thing that terrorists engage in. And that is, the thinking goes like this. Well, yes, innocent people died. Too bad. But it was done for an important purpose. It was collateral damage. You must accept collateral damage when you're doing something very important. That's how terrorists justify what they do. That's how nations justify what they do. Yes, so I'm asking all of us to transcend what is coming at us on all sides, and to think carefully and clearly. Because if we are all going to be herded into actions which are more dangerous, even than what we are facing now, then we will later regret the fact that we went all along silently and didn't raise our voices as citizens to ask, how can we get at the roots of this problem? And what can we do about it? And all of us can do something. Reading a work of another artist, a poet, Daniel Berrigan, longtime anti-war activist. Even after the Vietnam War, he continued struggling against war and militarism. And he wrote this poem in memory of a friend of his, a man named Mitchell Snyder, who had worked for the homeless in Washington, D.C., and then at a certain point worked for years and years and years for the homeless and became disconsolate at what the government was unable to do, even while the government was building jet planes and bombers and nuclear submarines and nuclear missiles, and the government didn't have enough money to take care of the problem of the homeless, and he became disconsolate, and he killed himself one day. And Dan Berrigan wrote this in loving memory, Mitchell Snyder. Some stood up once and sat down. Some walked a mile and walked away. Some stood up twice, then sat down. I've had it, they said. Some walked 2 miles, then walked away. It's too much, they cried. Some stood and stood and stood. They were taken for fools. They were taken for being taken in. Some walked and walked and walked. They walked the earth, they walked the waters, they walked the air. Why do you stand, they were asked, and why do you walk? Because of the children, they said, and because of the heart, and because of the bread. Because the cause is the heart's beat, and the children born, and the risen bread. So, I will welcome your questions, discussion, arguments. All right? raising a hand. Are there mics anywhere, or will I be able to hear people? Well, speak up so that everybody can hear you, okay?
Nick, do you want to help him moderate? Or? And if he could repeat the question.
Oh, okay. All right, just ignore me. Just go ahead. I'll just wave generally in your direction. Go ahead.
Okay, well, one thing I want to say is that I really like what Howard Zinn had to say tonight, and if anybody here agrees with him, then I think that we have a real responsibility to tonight take on this war. You know, the war movement going on right now, right? If you leave this building without starting some coalition that resists this war, then honestly, you know, you're not really looking at the people of the world, right? This war right now does not look good. They killed UN people. That must mean hundreds of children. I mean, we don't know, but don't expect the United States to be telling the truth. They're total liars, but everything they do, let's be real about this. They killed more than 1 million Iraqi children, or Iraqis and children, and they never put that on the news. They never tell us about it, right? They've napalmed all kinds of people in Vietnam, all over the world. Do they put that out and tell you students that? Do they have do they make that required reading? No, you have to look it up in Howard's book here. We have got to resist this war, right? They talk about justice. Who's justice? These guys are the biggest perpetrators of injustice in the whole world. They are an evil empire. Let's be real about it.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Like, you're saying important things, but like, this is a prime time for people to ask questions and get answers. So do you have
I think if you want justice, you got to look towards a mass revolution, okay? And that's basically what I'm saying. And I think it's up to you as an organizer to think about it a little bit too. How are you going to get people to organize about this?
Thank you. Thank you. I heard you. Yes.
Well, I think the point he's making is great. Reading a book now called The Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, if I pronounce it right. And the point that he makes is that we liberate ourselves from oppression by not only bringing those who are oppressed out of that, but bringing the oppressors out of that as well. So when you call it an evil empire, I think it's a little simplistic. But I would like to see what I would like to see how you would respond to that in light of these.
Respond to calling us an evil empire?
Or just the two different perspectives. I mean, I think what he's saying is very important. But how would you...
What do you see as the difference between his perspective and mine, aside from his anger and my indifference?
Well, what you are suggesting people should do at this point. What are you suggesting?
Oh, I'm not. I'm asking a question.
I think a lot of what he's saying is true. I mean, I wouldn't put it exactly that way, maybe, because I'm a moderate. But, saying a lot of true things. Way back there, yes?
My mind transcended me a step of thought that I was hoping to hear you talk about when I read the topic of your talk about the role of the artist in society, let's say. You talk more about the role of the arts in society, which is something that's interested me for a long time. And I've been very inspired by Friedrich Schiller's aesthetic letters and his analysis of what went wrong with the French Revolution and the role of the artist in society. And to my mind, that the received wisdom that you talked about the government is also just as black and white on the other side, that nowadays we have the received wisdom that everything that the government does is wrong. And unfortunately, you hear a lot of that in what you're saying. And it seems to me that after coming back from Central Europe, where I've been working